Greetings. My database project is on a preliminary park predominantly focused on bringing a park back to life and some of the little maintenance items that you would need to do to kind of get things up and going. So we'll talk about data sets, define some things, a few rules, the UML diagram, definitions in the table, the attribute definitions, and then a couple domains. So my thesis for the master's program has to deal with a local park. I'm predominantly doing a re-photography mapping portfolio, but I decided to kind of come up with this fictitious park in Detroit, Michigan. So I'm kind of going along the lines of our failing economy and the government cutting back on parks and recreation. So all the employees in the park have been fired and the park has been neglected. Vegetation is overgrown, utilities need to be repaired. Recently, a local millionaire has decided to help fund the project, and one of his first goals was to develop a database so he could look at inventory and maintenance. So two basic ideas. One, I'm going to look at trails, signs, roads, vegetation, and then on the utility side, things like lighting and irrigation, so people can, manage through the trails with light, obviously, so plants can be watered so they continue to grow. So I thought it might be kind of difficult to look at the whole park boundary. So I've decided to come up with a maintenance areas for the park and divide the park up into northwest, east, and south. Each of these areas will be linked back to that main parcel boundary through its unique account number that probably should also match the account number that the county uses for tax purposes for the park. So the focus was on maintenance. Obviously the trails need to be looked at, any playgrounds, plants, equipment in those areas, what keeps things up and running, pipes, lighting, electricity. Initially it would be a file geodatabase, then obviously the bigger the database, hence you could move into ArcSDE. So the parcel boundary data set, this is just going to be the general boundary, whether that the state maintains or county or city maintains. The vegetation and plants, this will most likely have to be done in the field. There probably isn't a comprehensive layer for all the vegetation and plants in the park. So the group maybe just wants to start focusing on going out in the field, taking GPS readings of particular types of vegetation and plants, whether it be trees, shrubbery, plants, that have flowers on them, whatever. And then I thought about the fences, thought about, how many types of fences there are. Are they along trails? Are they along boundaries and entrances? This might also have to bring in gates. And then I thought there might be smaller parks or monuments within the park, so little dedicated areas for particular people who either spent money on the area or, dedicated because they lost their lives, that kind of thing. Playgrounds, obviously there's going to be some sort of recreational spots for kids and play. We'll have to look at the equipment, how those grounds look, and signs, everything from stop signs to flooding signs to animal crossings to mile markers. And then the roads within the park, obviously there's going to be highways as part of the roads, but I'm more concerned with the roads that are actually within the park that are traveled by the park goers. And then kind of going back to trails, I thought of dividing those into walking and hiking trails, trails only for horses, trails only for biking. And then on the utility side, a couple of things I thought about was, you're going to have a meter for electricity usage and you're going to have a meter for water usage. These should probably be tables that are coming from the water and electrical companies, so they too will need to somehow be able to match up with our own land-based features for these things. Again, it would probably be feasible for a group to go out with GPS units and track where all the irrigation is, where all the electric meters are, and then to monitor outdoor lighting, what types of bulbs are used, where are they, what kind of condition they're in. And then I just thought maybe the utility poles, or the poles and the wires in good working condition. So again, this is a little redundant terms to find. We've already been through a large portion of this, but I did want to mention the acronyms. So the BDID would be the boundary ID, that main parcel that covers the whole boundary of the park. I would have, whether it be an APN or whichever account number that the appraisal or county uses to define that space, that would be that number. And then you'd have your 4 maintenance areas, which is the MID. The maintenance areas would all link back to the BDID, but all the things like plants, signs, trails, parcels, they'd all have matching MIDs to their location based on their maintenance area. So there's not a whole lot of rules per se, but obviously the parcels must be within park boundaries. The smaller parks and monument areas must be within the larger park boundaries. All the lighting, equipment, fence, trails must be linked back to their main maintenance areas. And again, the meter and water tables will need to be linked through a unique identifier for the park parcel. So here's my UML diagram. I divided into 2 feature data sets, the park feature data set and the utilities feature data set. Just as before, in the park feature data set, it's boundary, plants, fences, other park signs, roads, playgrounds, trails. They're both going to have that maintenance area ID to them. You'll have on the utility side the electric meter, irrigation parts, outdoor lighting, and utility poles. So the basic topology is that the maintenance areas have to be inside that larger park boundary area, and then I subtyped the maintenance areas into north, east, west, and south. The 2 little blue tables for the electric meter and irrigation, and then roads I subtyped into highway, dirt, and main, and then trails I subtyped into bike, horse, hiking, and then bike hiking. So in terms of my table definitions, you have that main boundary parcel, that big account number, the name of the parcel, the city, the state, the zip, the year it was established, its acreage. Maintenance areas have the BDID and their own MID, name, city, state. Plants have that unique identifier, the MID, the type of plant, the health or condition. Fences, MID, type, condition. Other parks, again, that MID number, name, their type, their acreage, their condition. Signs, same thing. Roads, name, MID, type, condition. Playgrounds, how much area are they covering, their condition. Trails, same thing, how long, distance, type of trail, and condition. And then electric meters, these go more on the usage side, so they also have the MID and a condition, but then they have a usage factor. Irrigation parts, just kind of want to know what the condition is, the type, and then outdoor lighting, the type of bulb, the condition, and the same thing with utility poles, their kind of ID number for their maintenance area and condition. Okay, so to kind of just further expand that, the boundary has that BDID, that's the main account number, it's name of the park, city, it's kind of obvious. State, zip, year established, so in case the boundaries have changed over time. And then the acreage and maintenance area has that initial BDID to link it back to the boundary, but they each have their own MID account number that was established by the group that's helping bring the park back so they can help manage tiles. When I worked at the appraisal district in Dallas, Texas, we divided up the city of Dallas into 252 tiles, and every time we had to check out a tile that we were working in, and nobody was allowed to check out that tile while we were working in it. So same basic idea. It could, right now it's divided up into 4 areas. It could get smaller, so people could, maintain separate smaller areas depending on how large the park is. And then plants, obviously plant type, health of plant, same kind of idea with fences, other park signs and roads. Going to utilities, you have, the condition, is the meter look okay, the usage of the meter, same thing with the irrigation, how much is being used, are the sprinklers, getting the water to the direct areas, how is their condition, outdoor lighting, different types of bulbs, how cost effective are these different bulbs, what's all being used where, and then the utility poles, their conditions and such. Okay, so like before, I subtyped maintenance areas, roads, and trails. I thought it would be easier to handle the maintenance areas right now and theoretically into 4 different types. Roads, obviously they need to be subtyped out. There's so many different ones, but I just chose to do it into 3. And then trails, bike, hike, horse, and a combination. So I just did a couple domains. For signs, I thought it would be important to have coding for stop sign, whether it's lodging, restrooms, flooding, handicap, mile markers, etc. And then fences, whether it be wood, metal, chain, barbed wire. So when they go out there and they're doing their field work based on sign condition, they can just put in a number for the type of fence, the type of sign, and then same thing for lighting. There's obviously tons of different types of bulbs, but I just went with halogen fluorescent sodium LED.